Yesterday, London staged a morality play in three acts: spectacle, strain, and reckoning. The spectacle was a vast procession of flags and slogans under the banner Unite the Kingdom. The strain was the price paid by the city's police, 25 injured, and by public order, and the reckoning is ours, a sober assessment of what this movement is, what it is not, and how a democratic society should respond. First, the arithmetic. Between 110,000 and 150,000 people attended the rally, one of the largest nationalist street mobilizations in Britain for decades. A separate counter-protest drew about 5,000. By the evening, the Metropolitan Police confirmed at least 25 arrests, 26 injured officers, 4 seriously, broken teeth, a broken nose, a concussion, a prolapsed disc among the injuries. And those numbers are not a footnote. They describe a protest that exceeded the planned footprint for Whitehall and split into confrontations as some tried to breach sterile zones set to keep groups apart. The Met says more arrests are likely as they work through the footage. Second, the rhetoric. This was not simply a British rally. It was a transatlantic broadcast. Elon Musk appeared by video link to call for a dissolution of Parliament and to warn that violence is coming. Either fight back or you die. That surely is some sort of provocation. That combination of maximal claim and muscular threat is not policy making. It is influencer theatre ported onto a constitutional stage. It may be viral. It is not responsible. The presence of Eric Zemmour reviving the tired fantasy of a great replacement further internationalized the message while narrowing it into a story of cultural siege. Third, the movement. Tommy Robinson has assembled a coalition less like Mosley's black shirts and more like a plug-and-play ecosystem of channels, merchandise and grievance, or merch. The family likeness to the 1930s is not in uniforms or party machinery, but in the narrative frame, the purity of an endangered people, the treachery of a soft state, and the alleged decadence of courts that supposedly prefer them to us. And we heard precisely that yesterday with claims that migrants have superior legal rights. That is untrue in law, but potent on a stage. Now to the standards. A liberal society protects speech it dislikes and policies conduct that endangers other people. The policing test is simple. Did the crowd respect the footprint, the cordons, the exit routes provided to separate antagonistic groups? When the answer is no, restraint becomes enforcement. Shields, horses, arrests. A fact pattern yesterday shows both lawful protest and targeted disorder. We should be clear on accountability. Suboptimal crowd management and late capacity calls can be criticized, but the choice to throw bottles, punch officers, force cordons is a moral choice made by individuals and in some cases encouraged by a mood from the stage. A word on the minute silence for the murdered American activist Charlie Kirk in Strasbourg. A proposed silence in the European Parliament was ruled out by the President on neutrality grounds, although, of course, there was a minute's silence for Floyd. In Whitehall, it became an identity right, a sacral moment within a rally whose speakers were pivoting to claims of national erosion and talk of governmental overthrow. Remembrance in a constitutional order is best held where the rules guard its dignity, cross-party vigils, civic services, or the floor of a chamber under agreed procedure, not as a branding within a crowd primed for confrontation. The contrast matters because form teaches culture, and when mourning is instrumentalized, it curdles. Let's also correct the mythology of size. At various points, figures in the movement claimed millions. Lawrence Fox has claimed millions. I've never seen anything so big. Well, police estimates based on CCTV and helicopter footage are far lower. The number was very large. It looked even larger because it was kettled in very small streets. And that is serious enough without inflation. When a movement habitually exaggerates its own size, it tells you it understands momentum as currency and truth as negotiable. In research methods, we call this the narrative numerator, the big number waved from the stage while the denominator city capacity, route constraints, rival events quietly disappears. So what is the right response? I think there are three things. Firstly, law and consequence. Where individuals assaulted officers or tried to breach sterile areas to reach counter-protesters, arrest and charge should follow. Where organisers failed to plan responsibly, sanctions accordingly should be applied with future permissions. And where online amplification crosses into incitement, apply the law without fear or favour. The Met has signalled a post-event investigation and further arrests. That is proper. Secondly, the rhetoric, the rhetorical discipline from the political class. When a foreign billionaire tells a London crowd that dissolution must happen now and fight back or die, Britain's leaders should treat that as performative provocation, not as a policy suggestion. We cannot outsource our constitution to live streams from thugs on the other side of the Atlantic. The right answer to reassert our own grammar is elections to timetable, rights with duties, protest with responsibility. But provocation from Elon Musk on a live feed is exactly what it says. It is provocation. Thirdly, the moral clarity without hysteria. It's possible to say two things at once. One, that immigration control and border policy are legitimate subjects. Parliament must debate them, revise them, and own the outcomes. Two, when a rally becomes a platform for conspiracy theory, dehumanizing language, and street aggression, it is not a contribution to policy. It is a test of whether we still believe in equal citizenship under law. And the presence of counter-protesters, trade unionists, MPs, faith groups matters here. They model the alternative, firm opposition paired with non-violence. Comparisons with the Notting Hill Carnival can be made, often in bad faith. Carnival is a multi-faith cultural event using saturation policing and pre-planned grids. Yesterday was a point-to-point rally whose final footprint was overrun by numbers far beyond the organisers' estimate, creating predictable choke points at Whitehall, Parliament Square, and the bridges. In other words, different events, different tactics, different denominators. If we must compare, compare like with like. Tally harm as well as arrests, examine pre-event planning, and scrutinise the stage messaging that shapes the crowd mood. What then does yesterday reveal? It reveals that Britain is not uniquely fragile, but is uniquely broadcast. Our streets are now studios, movements recruit through spectacle, not membership forms. The aim is to turn presence into pressure to make Parliament the guest on someone else's show. That should stiffen, not panic. That should stiffen our spines. It reveals that policing mass politics in a capital of 8 million people requires both fine judgment and assertive boundaries. The police who lost teeth yesterday are not the enemy in a culture war. They are the line that allowed two inimicable protests to occupy the same geography without a fatality. We can ask hard questions about tactics, and we should, while refusing the slander that officers are an illegitimate barrier to the people. And it reveals what the centre must speak, not in soft euphemisms but in plain commitments. Here are 3 points to end with. 1, the equal dignity commitment. No platform, no party or preacher gets to downgrade a neighbour's citizenship, full stop. When speakers toy with ranking rights by birthright, by birthplace or faith, leaders must say no in public, in detail and repeatedly. 2, the rules commitment. Permits are permits, times are times, sterile areas are for safety, and those who breach them will be removed. That is how you protect both sets of protesters and the uninvolved public trying to cross a bridge or reach a bus. 3, the truth commitment. Crowd sizes, crime figures, court judgments. We state them as they are, not as our side wishes them to be. A polity that surrenders numbers to narrative soon surrenders judgment to noise. Yesterday was not the apocalypse, but it was a warning shot. The politics of spectacle did what it tends to do: escalate strain the cordon and then claim the strain as proof of its own prophecy. Our answer should be calm, exact, and firm. We keep the square open for arguments. We keep each person equal before the law. We keep fists out of disputes. That is how you unite a kingdom.